And so we were not so much as always available to politics and everything. But in 2024, of course, we saw in 2020 a record number of Gen Z and millennial voters that voted higher than almost any other demographic in America. And then when you look at 2024, there are 41 million eligible voters that are between the ages of 18 and 27, 41 million that are just eligible. Now, that's just not even talking about those that are not yet registered that we're going to bring in, and we're going to continue registering, and all of those, the TJC fellows that are doing remarkable work at Grambling State, Florida State, North Carolina A&T. All of our fellows are across the country at these HBCUs registering. They're lobbying at the state houses. Young people are more fired up in the elections as they've ever been. So I think in 2024, we're going to continue to see record-breaking, glass-ceiling-shattering numbers. And we're coming out to the polls like we've never done before. We're going to continue doing what we've been doing in these last few things because there are so many issues that are now so pertinent to our generation that we cannot ignore this election. And I don't believe that we will.
Thank you. And let me just say to everyone, do not speak on speaker. Speak directly into your phone. We can't take a speaker phone. That's why we're having some distortion. So go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, no, Barbara, you're right on point because we want to be certain that we hear every word that our Gen Zs are saying because, our audience, they're going to be hanging on to what you're saying. They want to be certain that they capture it all so they can certainly put it into their knowledge base. Mollie, one of the things that Cameron was talking about was the challenges of getting Gen Zs and young voters out to the polls. And we know there have been all kinds of practices that have been presenting obstacles to try to stop Gen Zs from getting to the polls. One of the things that has been attempted has been to remove polling places from college campuses as one of the way to try to slow down that Gen Z voter. But you did something there at Miami University in Ohio that was unique. Can you share with our audience what it is that you did and why it was successful?
Yeah, for sure. So back last April, Ohio passed some voter laws that basically made it harder for college students to vote. The most prevalent one of these was the photo identification laws that only allowed students to vote if they had an Ohio form of identification. So for me, as someone from Illinois who votes with my college address, I saw that as a significant barrier in order to get students out to the polls, because I have a lot of friends who also may not necessarily have an Ohio ID but are still using their college addresses to vote. So my idea to combat this was to basically run an entire education campaign and also bus service called the Democracy Bus, where I did this whole social media and interview campaign where I got students on campus excited about voting. So I think I probably talked to 20, 30 student organizations. I stopped in classrooms and I just talked to students about voting and the power of their vote and talked about the new voting laws because a lot of students didn't know what was going on. So we ended up taking students on a school bus to go vote early at our county board of elections because in Ohio you have to vote early at the board of elections instead of a designated early polling place. And there's only one per county, and ours is about 30 minutes away. And also a lot of students don't have cars. So I was like, why not let's take students on a bus to vote. So we had some students follow us on a bus as well as a German documentary crew who was documenting this experience as a part of their Democracy in America experience. And it was so cool getting to know that my work and work across the country is being featured as a part of the narrative of Gen Z taking action and tackling these issues head on, because we have a lot more power than we realize. We read a lot of things online, get overwhelmed, but it's really about channeling your fear and worry into tangible action within your capacity. And that's kind of what I did with the Democracy Bus. So I remember one day I was walking on campus and people will stop me and be like, oh, you're the Democracy Bus girl. That's kind of how I've become known. And with that, it's so funny. And then with that project, students are like, oh, I need to check my voter registration. I need to make a plan for voting. So that entire project not only provide transportation, it was basically like an entire campaign to get students excited and know more about the process for voting. So, yeah, it was a really great project, and I'm really excited that students felt empowered to take the bus. And next semester, the bus is expanding into 2 different counties. So students who are from the Cincinnati area and voting in Hamilton County will be able to take the bus to vote at home if they would like to, which is really exciting because a lot of students come from Cincinnati. So I'm really excited to help my new team and I establish a second bus line. But yeah, it's been such a transformative project, and I'm really glad that students have kind of got the message that this is an urgent issue, and maybe something as large as a bus will get their attention. So yeah, it's been great.
Mm-hmm.
And Mollie, just so our audience hears and understands this, tell them again, how far was the voting center for early voting from your campus?
Yeah, so our early voting polling place is a 30-minute drive away, and so it's at the County Board of Elections, and the entire left turn lane into the Board of Elections is blocked off. So if you didn't know this, you have to take a 10-minute detour on top of a 30-minute drive to get into the Board of Elections. So you have to come in with specific knowledge that you have to go around an alternate way to get into the Board of Elections. So your trip to the Board of Elections could end up being 30 to 40 minutes, which is just absurd. And for a lot of students, they don't actually have time to vote on campus for Election Day, and we only have one early voting place, and it's probably a good 20-30-minute walk from most students' classes. So often students don't feel encouraged to go out and vote on Election Day because it's so inaccessible to get to on campus.
Wow.
That's like a 20-minute walk to get to the voting place, and then a 20-minute walk back to the campus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
So you're taking an hour out of your day just to try to vote, and you got to hope there's no line once you get there, right? Because that's even more time.
Yeah. And
yep,
Daryl,
exactly.
Remember, Mollie, I don't know if you heard Andreas Cavillo's on Monday, but he talked about his fight in Florida State University, Daryl, to get a polling site on campus because they were experiencing the same problems. And I want you to know, Mollie, that the number one question in the chat, the number one follow-up question that people had was about this issue of polling sites on campus that are accessible, that people can participate at. It's more than one when you got these big campuses. That's been the number one follow-up from our teletown hall. So this is not a minor issue. This is a major issue. And it's very important. Thank you so much for what you do, Daryl.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for that, Mollie, and thanks for being here. One of the things that the Democracy Bus girl was indicating was some of the challenges that students face when they're trying to get their vote on. And I tell you, one of the interesting things is that we know down in Georgia, Barbara, that there has just been an incredible challenge to people trying to be able to access the right to vote. And students in particular, they've gotten to the point now where they've even made it so the drop boxes that were generally available 24 hours a day and under camera are now available only indoors, 9 to 5 p.m., which goes against the very purpose of a drop box for the convenience. And let's not even talk about the absentee ballot process and problems that they've now created in restricting access. But Darian, you're down there in Georgia. You're over at Morehouse College. You're right there in the belly of the suppressive beast where they're trying to suppress these voters. What's happening over at Morehouse? What's happening in Atlanta? What's happening in Barnesville to get these young folks out to the polls and be certain that they have access and the ability to vote?
Well, Daryl, what we're seeing, and having been a lifelong resident of Georgia, born in Georgia, and I've constantly made sure that I was aware of what was going on, not just at home, but at the entire state as a whole. What I've seen mostly is this purging of the voter rolls. There's no shame in the voter suppression that is very much visible. We've seen, like you were just mentioning about the drop boxes in my own county, there is only one drop box in our entire county, in Lamar County, in Barnesville, and it's inside, and it's not even 9 to 5. And I spoke with the election board, and it was 9. It ended up being like 9 to 4:30 because they said if nobody came in the next 30 minutes, they would just go ahead and close the building. And I told them, y'all know y'all wrong. Y'all understand that y'all are visibly wrong and audibly wrong because we already know that this is enough suppression from 9 to 5. But to stop 30 minutes before somebody can get in, I mean, we're seeing this in these small towns and no one's paying attention. And what we really have to understand is that it's so much in this next election cycle that's at stake that we need to be doing everything that we can to make sure that these those that are pushing this suppression are held accountable and letting them know that we're not going to take this. And we all need to be encouraging each other in our churches and our community meetings and in the grocery store, the post office. We need to be letting everybody know what's at stake, remind them of the issues that are close to their heart. And that's what's going to get them to the polls. It's not just one speech, not just one one lecture. You got to reach them where you got to get to them where they are. You have to understand what's near and dear to them. That's what's going to move them.
Absolutely. And, it's so, much Daryl will tell you and everyone that TJC joined Black Voters Matters and other organizations about 2 years ago, and we sued the state of Georgia over these voter purges. But not only are they purging voters, which is outrageous, and of course, people are suing again, but they're also allowing voter challengers, people to challenge voters just willy-nilly. They don't have to have any basis in fact in law or any other. They can just, say, I believe Barbara Arnwine is not a valid registered, participant in if I live in that state. That's just not acceptable, but it is where we are. And not to mention the redistricting battle that's going on in Georgia. Back to you, Daryl.
You're absolutely right, Barbara. One of the interesting things is, and when Darian was talking about the challenges that are brought to voters, that the voter doesn't necessarily know they've been challenged at the time. That's right. The person that's actually challenging these voters, they can sit at their home. They don't even need to go to a headquarters or have anything by affidavit. They can send it in saying they're challenging, and they do thousands of voters that they can challenge at the click of a button. And then when the voter goes to vote, they are then informed that their ability to vote has been challenged. So it is an incredible thing that's occurring, not simply in Georgia, but in different states across the country. Carl Snowden, are you still with us?
I am, sir.
So Carl, you were one of these young activists that we're talking to now, and you're one of those people that have been on the front line. You've been through these battles. You've been through these wars. You hear what these young voters today are facing. What message do you bring to them? Do you say to them?
I think I'm a lover of history, and one of the things that we noted following the 2016 election, more women turned out for the Women's March that year than in the history of the nation. And I'm very optimistic. I think that as we move forward, as it becomes crystal clear what's at stake, the democracy, I'm betting on the American people. I'm betting that more and more people will understand the importance of preserving the right to vote. I had a conversation, Daryl, I had shared with you, and I want to share it with Barbara. My successors, I worked for the Maryland Attorney General's office. I was their first director of civil rights. So I met my successor, who turned out to be a fan of Barbara. He worked for her when she was at the civil rights. His name is Jonathan Smith. And he told me stories of being involved with Barbara and the kinds of systemic changes they brought. And I have a view of looking at the world from a perspective of what has happened in the past. And some of the battles that Jonathan Smith had told me that he was involved with Barbara and the changes they were able to bring about is tremendous. So with Barbara and you in the vanguard, I'm very, very optimistic. We have people who are veterans. It was Muhammad Ali who once said, if you're looking for a fight, I'm the person. And we are so fortunate to have you in these leadership positions. We are going to win, and we're going to win big in 2024 because young people are going to respond to this clarion call. This generation is the generation that will make the difference. And we've seen it before and we'll see it again.